Let's see if this works. Are we live? We are.
We might have to refresh the page, man.
I don't know.
Now we're live.
You wouldn't think that would.
Now it's good. Now we're live.
Oh, we are live.
I mean, it's not gonna go until we're live. Now we're back to making live.
Yay! Sort of. It's on delay, but that's okay.
Of course, it's not delay. Yes, Nick. It's
Instantly live.
instantly. I don't think Twitch can even manage like less than a 10-second delay.
Wait. So probably leave that like that. Okay, because tell everybody we're live. What's the? How do we get the link for this? Oh, stream health is bad.
Yeah, I can't really. Okay, young orange is that what we're referring to?
Yeah.
Isn't it just be like on the desktop YouTube channel somewhere?
Somewhere.
The comments aren't disabled. Yeah, on the risky side.
No one's gonna be looking at them.
There you
What's
go.
the name of it? What's the name of our channel?
DevSec Club. It's like a brand account though. It's kind of weird. Okay.
Yep. I see the stream right here. I'll post the link in chat.
Thank you. All right.
2 watching now.
2 watching. Nice.
Same here in the room.
Probably. Should I go check the EH100?
Probably should not do that. Got confused.
Figure out like what
But
the numbers
isn't
are.
there something? I thought maybe there'd be something going on there. Where's that Northrop thing?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there either. You're right. I don't think that's the EH100 though. I don't think I'm referring to it. Well, my SRX is starting.
Cool.
That's fine. I need a review SRX. Yeah, it's not rough. Hopefully no one walks in on them. Shut the doors, Nick. Is it serious? Well, I don't know if it's not. I'm sure it's Northrop. I can look in the window and see Food and Tom in the same picture. I'm assuming it's somebody presenting the jobs. Okay, what do we got? Did you do base configuration for these or not?
No. Okay. They're basically like out of the box, except for a couple things I added to user management stuff, so that you have something to do there.
I think like they didn't have a better menu back then, right?
On what?
But did you change the password?
Yeah, it's password gone bad.
So you what about the experience?
What do you mean?
Seems like you modified things. Wait.
Can you not log in?
Oh no, I can log in.
Okay, yeah.
I'm just saying you clearly changed stuff and you had to set the password.
Yeah.
So I don't have to to do? Like, is the web GUI already up and everything?
Yeah. But you can't reach it because none of the interfaces are configured.
Well, that's.
But you shouldn't use the web GUI.
What?
Because the web GUI is bad. You shouldn't use it.
Well, for configuring rules. I was going to use the terminal.
This is advanced Linux.
Okay, so
we're on terminal all the time.
Okay, so we're not touching the web GUI?
I'm not touching the web GUI at all.
Wow, this will be fun.
Yes.
All the powers of the GUI combined.
We might do GUI stuff for Palo, but not a whole lot.
I mean, there has to be something in SRX you can't do from command line, right?
Like graphics stuff. Like if you want to show a chart or something, sure.
Well,
that's what I'm worried about on Palo, is showing charts and stuff.
There's be something nicer. Juniper doesn't have any fancy options.
I don't think so. I haven't touched it very much either, though. I've only really used the GUI and Cody's class for defensive.
Yeah, same. So if I search Juniper fancy options, what would I find?
I'm not sure if I even use that either.
Oh,
I might have done that.
Found Juniper fancy. Unfortunately, I don't think it's related to the firewall.
Like a nice pie or something from that.
Yeah, get nice graphs of
Appears to be a big show.
charts based on our incoming traffic.
Something.
That's a big check sometimes.
Well, I mean, yeah, but does it have any of Palo's filtering?
Like application-based filtering?
Yeah.
No.
No.
Juniper is a dumb firewall.
So why don't we use PS6 again?
In here? Because I assume all you guys know how to use PS6.
No, I just meant the how bad is Juniper licensed? You looked it up?
No. I think the appliances are pretty expensive though.
Oh, I forgot. They mandate that. I mean, there's no way to get around that. Right?
Yeah.
Who else is even out there besides Juniper and Palo?
Palo Cisco.
No, yeah.
Cisco's going down right now though because all their stuff's super expensive. And Juniper priced them out, and so they got a lot of business now.
Besides Cisco, is there anybody else who does? No, commercial.
I mean, there's like open source stuff.
Well, I was talking like commercial, like.
Not off the top of my head. I mean, there's like people who do like FireEye does like just the firewall part. I mean,
Not the routing part.
I assume it does routing part too, but I don't know that people use that as much. I think Juniper is mostly what they use for like actual routing, like at ISPs and things. Palo is what you'd use like at your edge. Because you don't want that overhead in like your routing switching center.
Print stuff else.
Yeah, just so I'm not having to do split screen.
Oh, okay. I don't do it for us.
No. I mean, that you can just go to the link. It's not a big deal. Should we wait till 6:05 just in case anybody else shows up?
We'd like to. It's fine if we don't. You have to make configuration. So why does Juniper do that stupid let's check your command every time you hit the spacebar?
Because if it's like if there's only one option and you hit spacebar, it'll auto-complete it for you.
Yeah, but like after I type forward, I think there's spacebar. It yells at me if I type.
Well, yeah,
That's kind of annoying.
it's a little bit annoying, yeah.
I
But
have arrow keys for a reason.
they don't work too well.
My arrow keys work perfectly fine, thank you. Does it support like normal bash? It does.
Mm-hmm.
You can jump around.
Yeah.
It's fine. You can.
I
You can
don't know. I've had issues like hitting left.
So have you figured out if you can drop it to like an actual shell on this thing?
You can.
Oh, you can?
Yeah. Well, right when it boots up and you log in, that's a regular shell.
Well,
CSH.
Or I guess you, yeah.
We'll talk a little bit about that toward the end.
Oh, yeah, drop the exit, I think that configure mode. No. No, commit. Oh, I forgot, this was annoying too. Juniper takes it freaking forever to commit.
I should probably edit that so it's actually got the right name of the app, right?
No, I locked in as root, and I don't have actual shit. I can't do ls, so I just not have ls.
You 100% should.
I'm in a different mode still. Oh, I wasn't in a different mode.
You're probably in the CLI.
I was in CLI, that's
Yeah.
keep reading the CLIs on top of it. So no, we can do scripting on that. We can totally script that. There's no way we can't script that.
Uh-huh. I
So
did
what,
that.
Palo, we don't have an actual show in Palo?
Palo, you don't have an actual show.
Okay.
Yep.
How hard did you try for Palo?
I googled around, it didn't seem possible. They have a scripting mode, but that just means you can copy and paste into your PuTTY terminal, basically.
But you're still, you're still scripting firewall, and that can you configure NAT from there?
From the command line? Yeah.
From Palo?
Yeah. I mean, the problem is
Can I curl?
you can't run scripts on the system. You have to run them off the system and then copy and paste it in.
Okay.
What was your name?
It's Matt.
What was it?
Matt?
Matt. Okay.
It's,
Cool.
your name's Nick,
Nick.
right?
Yep.
Okay.
That's Michael. That's Logan.
Good to meet you guys.
Good. Since we
Got
got
a small turnout tonight.
Yeah, so we might as well get to know each other, right? Okay, so let's get started. Hello to everyone watching on the stream, if that's not you guys in the room. Okay, let's go to the lab. So I posted this in the DefSec channel. This is basically what we're going to run through today. There are a couple resources that I've put together that you might find useful. First is this documentation book. This has like a bunch of stuff. This is basically like a whole bunch of setup guides that I've put together over like 4 years. Way down on page 79, I think it is. We have a bunch of stuff about how to configure the Juniper SRX firewall. So if you need to know how to do stuff, this is probably where you're going to look. Otherwise, you can Google it, but it's probably going to take a little bit longer. Something we're not going to cover today, but what you might find useful in a competition possibly, is password recovery. That's up on the 78th page, I think. So if you ever find yourself locked out of your box, that's how you get back in. So Juniper is not really being used in competitions anymore. It was used a couple years ago at the regionals, and they used it at nationals a lot for like maybe 2 or 3 years ago. It's been phased out in favor of Palo Alto, which is a lot better than Juniper. But I figured I haven't touched Juniper or Palo since spring, so I figured this would be a good refresher for me and probably be a good intro for you guys too. Because Palo Alto is a lot more powerful than Juniper, so we can get sort of the basics down here and then move on later on. So one of the cool things about Juniper is that you actually have a CSH shell, so you can actually script things. You can like script your firewall rules and then have them output to a file and then load that into your config, which is really, really nice, especially since Juniper is a little bit annoying to set up firewall stuff for. Yeah, like actual setting the security policies is a little bit like verbose, so it can be kind of nice to actually be able to script that stuff out. And it'll save you probably like 2 or 3 minutes in a competition setting, which is really nice. So this is the lab we're going to run through. Basically, I have all the steps. I've basically given you a Juniper SRX appliance with basically no configuration done whatsoever. We're going to go through, we're going to back up our config, we're going to do some basic system security like setting passwords and user accounts, and then we're going to do some network configuration, do our source NAT, do a one-to-one destination NAT, configure some security zones and some firewall settings. And then at the end of the day, we should have a really good functional secure firewall that's blocking all inbound traffic except the stuff we want, and all outbound traffic except the stuff we want. So it's going to be a pretty long lab, but I'll walk you through all the steps. If you ever get lost, I have a step-by-step guide right here. If you follow this basically line by line, this will do everything you want it to do, but obviously don't look unless you have to. These are just like a cheat sheet if you need it. So we're gonna jump over here and go to our Juniper SRX vApp. So I got a bunch of VMs in here, basically just for testing network stuff configuration. We're basically just going to be working on the Juniper SRX VM. So if you have that powered on, going to log in as root. The password is password1bang. And so when we drop in right here, we're in a CSH shell. Basically, Juniper is like a BSD file system. You can basically do anything you can do on a BSD system on here, apart from the fact that a lot of your favorite binaries are probably not actually on the system. So if you actually want to like pull stuff from web pages, you're probably going to have to do that through JunoOS through the CLI. So the first thing we're going to do is type CLI. That'll get us into the command line interface. From this interface, if you type the question mark symbol, so that's shift / it'll show you all of the possible commands you can run. There are a bunch of different things in here. These are mostly for diagnostic purposes. You can't actually configure anything from the CLI. You have to go into the configuration interface. So one thing you can do file, so you can like copy and move files on the file system through this. You can copy stuff over like SCP and FTP, which is really useful. There's also like SSH, so you can SSH into a different system from your firewall. A lot of different cool things like that. You can like show things related to your configuration. So like say you want to look at all your interfaces to see if they're like up or down. You do show interfaces, and then you can like scroll through all of the interfaces that are on the system. There's a bunch of stuff. Most of it's not actually being used. Basically all we are going to configure is the GE000 and GE001 interfaces. So let's get to configuration. So if you type conf and hit tab, it'll autocomplete to configure. If you type like any command and there's only one option for that command and you just hit space or enter, it'll just type that command for you. It's a really nice quick shortcut. So we're going to type configure. We're going to get into configuration mode. So here we are basically editing the configuration file for the firewall system. So if you do show at the top level, we're at the top level right now, this will show you the entire configuration for the firewall. This is basically what it looks like. It's a bunch of blocks and nested blocks. So we got our system here, and then if you scroll way down, there's our interface definitions, and there are under security, we've got like security policies and security zones, all that good stuff there. So basically what we're going to do is edit pieces of that config, and then we're going to commit that config to be the running config, and that'll update things on the system. One of the important things to remember when you're configuring like a Juniper firewall is that when you change something in the config, it is not going to be applied until you commit it. So if I change the password hashing algorithm to SHA-1 instead of MD5 crypt, that won't actually be functional until I commit it. So if I change it to SHA-1, change the password, it'll still be using that MD5 crypt. So you got to be careful with that. But before we do anything, we're going to back up the config. Got to remember how to do it too. Save. So we're going to save, and then we're going to put in our file name. So I'll do config.back. So now we have our config backed up. If we ever screw something up so badly that we need to replace the entire running config to its original state, we'll do a load and then a override. And then the file name, config.back. But I'm not going to do that right now. So first thing we're going to do is system security. So we're going to lock down our root account. We're going to get rid of any unnecessary users that are on the system. And we're going to disable any services that we don't actually want to be running. So to edit system security, we're going to edit system. And if we show that, oops. So here we have root authentication, which is all of our stuff for our root stuff, and then we have login, which is a bunch of other users. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set our password hashing algorithm to SHA-1. So we're going to set system login. Oh yeah, we're already in system, so we've got to set login. Got to keep track of where you are in the config. I believe it's password, and then let me double check that. Password format, yep. Password format SHA-1. So if you like hit question mark before you put in the SHA-1, you can see all the different types of password hashing algorithms you can use. Unfortunately, there are only 2, so we just got to use the most secure one, which is SHA-1. So now we have to commit, so that when we change root's password, it'll actually use the proper hashing algorithm. And then we are going to set root's password. So we're going to set root authentication, plain text password, and type in our new password. It doesn't have to be secure for this. Just make sure you can remember it. Now that we've done that, if we show what we've got here, we also see that we have an SSH key installed for root. We don't necessarily want to have that on the system. If it's something you put there, obviously you want to keep it, but if it's not something you put there, you probably want to delete it. And I just realized that I made a mistake. So a weird thing that I found out yesterday is that this does not work. It wants you to type out the entire SSH key, which is not great. So the workaround I found was to just delete root authentication altogether, and then you have to put in your password again. So that gets rid of it. There's probably a better way to do it. I don't know if this, yeah, it doesn't work. That might be something to look into if we run into that again at some point. But anyway, another thing we see if we show the config is that we have a user named Bob. He's a super user, he has a password, he can log into our system, and we don't want him there anymore. So what we're going to do is just delete Bob. And since he's the only one there, now he's gone. And we're going to commit to save our changes. So now that Bob's gone, the only person who can log in is root, and we changed the password, and the only way they can log in is with the password. So now our issue is login methods. Can people log in over SSH? Can they log in over Telnet? We don't want that. You can see above here, we'll probably make that bigger. You can see we have FTP enabled in our services. We have SSH, we have Telnet, and we have HTTP and HTTPS. So we only want to keep HTTP and HTTPS. So we're going to delete services, FTP, SSH, and Telnet. And then commit those changes. So once we got that done, that's it for our system security. Then I'm going to type top to go to the top level of our configuration file. And then we're going to get into our network configuration. So we're going to set interfaces. I'm going to do GE000. This is our external interface. We're going to go into unit 0 for the default VLAN and family INET address. We're going to set our address here. We want it to be 10.0.0.1/24. And then we're going to set our interface for GE001, which is our internal interface. Which is going to be 192.168.1.1/24. So now we have our interfaces set, and we're going to set our default route. So we're going to set routing options, route static. Actually, no. Static. Set routing options static route 000/0. Next hop is going to be our default gateway, which is 10.0.0.254. And finally, we're going to set our name server. It's going to be 172.16.3.100, which is the internal DNS server on vCloud Internet. So that name server is going to be used by the firewall itself to do domain name resolution. It's not actually going to be pushed down to our clients unless we configure that through DHCP. So now that we've done that, we can commit. Very, very slowly commit. There we go. So what we've got right now is a functional router. The main issue is that actually, yeah, it would work if our internal IPs, or our internal clients, can ping out, assuming that our external clients are using our router as their default gateway. They can talk back to each other. That is not the way this thing is set up. So the way this is set up is that we've got a bunch of internal clients. So we got a DNS server, an HTTP/SSH server, and an RDP server way down here. And then we have a client which is waiting for a DHCP address. So they're on our internal network. They're using our firewall as their default gateway. And then we have two internet machines. So these internet machines are sitting out on our internet, which is on the 10.0.0.0/24 network. Their default gateway is actually set to our upstream gateway, which is pfSense. So if these guys get a ping from inside our internal network, they'll try to ping back and they'll go up to the pfSense instead of down to our Juniper, which is what we don't want. But it's not something we can control, right? Because it's on the internet and we don't control those machines. So the way we're going to fix that is we're going to put in a source NAT. Get rid of this. So we're going to do edit, if I can get here, edit security NAT, source rule set, and then you can name the rule set whatever you want. I'm going to call it SNAT for source NAT. And then we're going to set our from interface to GE001. That's our internal interface. So anything coming in from that internal interface is going to get natted. Then we're going to set our to interface to GE000, which is our external interface. And then we're going to make a rule. So we're going to set rule SNAT. You can call this something else too if you want to. I'm going to call it SNAT. We're going to match our source address. It's going to be any internal IP address on our internal subnet. That's going to be 192.168.1.0/24. That's going to match our source address, and then we have to match our destination address. Actually, no. I want that to be 000. So I'll match any destination address we have. And then we will, and if any packets come into the router matching that description, we're going to source NAT it using the interface IP address. So, and then we'll commit. So if any system on our internal subnet tries to talk out to any system external to our firewall, they'll come hit the firewall, get source NATed, so that their source address is now the external IP address of the Juniper system, and then it'll keep going on its way, and then when it comes back, it'll get mapped back to the correct IP address. Is everyone here?
After you commit.
Okay. We'll wait to catch up, and then once we're here, oops, that's not good. Never mind. I'll just wait. So now we've got that done, we can test it from an internal system. So if you want to jump onto HTTP SSH, that's our internal system. Oops, it's a little bit too big. So I'm going to log in as root, password 1 bang. Run IPA to make sure I have an internal IP address. So that's 192.168.1.10, which is internal. So I should now be able to ping any system external to our firewall here. So I'm going to ping 10.0.0.100, which is the Linux internet machine out there. That's not good. Make sure I have the IP right. It should have worked. Oh, you know what? I forgot something. We have to configure security zones first. So this is not going to work. Cancel. So we're going to jump back here. Okay. So I forgot we have to configure security zones. So basically our source networks would work right now, except that our firewall, the way it's configured, is based on security zones. And since our internal interface is not assigned to any security zone, it just gets default blocked. So anything that comes into the router, basically from any interface right now, is just going to get blocked. So in order to fix that, we're going to go top to get back to the top level of our configuration. And then we're going to edit security zones. If we show it right now, we have 2 zones by default. One is trust and one is untrust. By default, our GE000 is set to the untrust zone, which is what we want because that's the external interface. What we need to do is set our internal interface to be in the trust zone. So we're going to set security zone trust to interface GE001, and then do that. And then while we're here, we'll also set it up so that we're allowing traffic to the firewall from any system like on our internal subnet. So we want to allow certain services like HTTP and HTTPS, and we also want to allow ping. So we're going to set host inbound traffic. We're going to set security zone trust host inbound traffic. System services. And then here we see all the system services we can allow in. We're going to allow HTTP. We're going to allow HTTPS. And we're going to allow ping. And then we'll commit that.
Sorry, you said security zone trust, and then how do you,
That?
no, the last one you just did? There it is, okay.
Yeah.
System services, okay.
Yep, system services.
Do a show when you have a chance, please.
Yep. So there's a couple different ways you can actually set host inbound traffic. You can either set it on the zone itself or on one of the interfaces. Certain types of services can only be put on an interface, while other ones can be put on the zone.
Is there a way to go one level up?
Yes. Type up, and you go 1 level up. Okay. Okay, so that would be enough for us to test our source NAT. So if we jump back to our HTTP SSH box, we should now be able to ping out. And we can. Cool. If you can't ping, let me know, and let's see if we can figure out what's wrong. And you should also be able to ping 192.168.1.1 as well, since that's our firewall IP.
Is there a difference between the interface of G-00 or 0/0/1.0 versus just 1?
No.
Okay, they are like this.
I have had it where Juniper will complain if you just type it like without the .0.
Yeah.
But usually if you hit like tab, it'll autocomplete it to what it wants. That seemed to be like a rare case when that happened.
Can you do a show on security zone, security trust? Okay, that's good. Someone's broken.
So you can't ping? Might be your net.
Not like that. Lol. Didn't commit at some point.
Yeah, that's, yeah, make sure you commit. Always commit often.
That's fine. So if you do show and you haven't committed, which one does it show?
It shows
The temp?
the temp, yes. Yep. I think you can show the running config as well. Might be in run. Yeah, so if you type run from the config interface, it'll run a command as though you were at the CLI interface. So you should,
Why does run show not work?
I can't remember. I don't know if it's here or not. Here we go. Configuration.
That works.
Show configuration.
And then it should be configuration should be top level, right?
Yeah.
You can't. Can you drop down from there?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So let me try setting something here.
Yeah, what happens? Can you edit the running configuration directly then?
I don't think so.
So if you do like run set configuration system whatever, it won't work.
It means
Wouldn't it be? Or you'd have to do run. It doesn't run just run in the instance. So
run makes it work as though you're at the CLI interface.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Versus the configuration interface. Okay.
Yeah.
That's all.
I don't know if there's a way to show your running config.
So this just has, it of course has related established trust by default. And you're just allowing the trust stuff, is all we're doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, the default configuration is that you allow everything outbound, nothing inbound. So is everybody able to ping out?
Almost there.
Okay.
Did you say the default configuration is allowing everything outbound but nothing inbound?
Yes.
Is it 192.168 on G001?
Yes.
Oh, but it wasn't set as the trust before, was it?
No.
So you're saying if we set it to trust, we should redo everything outbound, right?
Right.
Okay. Didn't we just set a lot of like, okay, maybe I'm looking at this spot. All the inbound traffic system services, all those.
That allows traffic to the firewall itself.
Okay. Oh yeah, I forgot Juniper. Okay. Yep. That's
Yes.
a good thing.
So, yeah, the Juniper handles like traffic going to the firewall differently than it handles traffic going through the firewall. So all the traffic going through is governed by your system, governed by security policies, whereas the stuff to the firewall itself is underneath your zones. So under your zones host inbound traffic, and then your ping and HTTPS and things like that.
Wow, those chains get pretty dang long, don't they? Security zone, trust, host inbound traffic, system services.
Yep.
It's a bit much.
Well, you can do edit to get like low down the
you
config,
can. That
but
doesn't make it less painful.
well, it can if you're doing a lot at once. But
Well,
yeah,
you still have a path.
yeah.
So I got a question.
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to reconfigure my my interfaces, and it won't let me commit. So am I in the wrong fields, or since I'm in the?
No, so it won't let you commit because you have an error in your config.
Okay.
So you see rule SNet.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the source net rule you made. It doesn't have a then part to it.
Sure.
So that's what you forgot to add.
Okay.
You can either delete the rule or add that then part, and you should be able to commit.
Okay. And where does this rule at? So I just do a
I
show.
think you're in it right now.
Okay.
So you should be able to just type show.
Can always give us crap.
Or no. What's it saying?
The web GUI may make that less painful at Mike 713. I replied, of course, that's for heretics.
I thought you were on the
Yeah.
Huge.
Oh, then it will drop down.
So if you edit security net, source, and then rule set SNet.
Okay, what is that supposed to do?
Rule set as a dash.
Oh.
And they should be able to show.
Oh, gotcha. So missing inventory statement then. So where am I missing then?
So you're missing two things. You need a destination address in your match, and then you need a then after.
Okay.
It should be going down like that, step by step.
Oh, sure. Okay, I gotcha.
Okay.
I do a show interfaces here.
That won't work.
Oh, that won't work because I'm already in there. Okay.
Did you say you had a script to make it stop refreshing?
I do not.
Well,
That is an issue for me. I don't know. Do you know why that's happening?
well, first of all, we're not using any tap one at all. I don't know why that's happening.
Yeah, it's
It's probably Eric's fault, right? I don't know. Could have been something he did, or it could just that'd be such a crappy update though. Let's make it refresh every 10 seconds.
it probably prevents
Yeah, I know what
connection from dropping.
I know what it prevents. I just feel like it's a crappy solution.
It is, yes.
That's why it seems really crappy that VMware would implement that as a solution. I wouldn't expect them to for VMware to implement. That's why I wonder if somebody Eric did.
I'd look it up.
It's still a solution. I I'm gonna get crap enough for Cody. This is all this is gonna happen. Listen to everything.
Huh, that's super weird. Sorry, I'm still trying to kind of figure out this.
Oh yeah, you just need to scroll that. Or are you trying to something else? You're trying to fix this still, right?
Yeah, I'm still trying to fix that.
Okay, yeah. So if you go over to the Juniper step by step and scroll down. Those two lines there.
Oh, you're, okay, gotcha.
It's terrible.
Can you pin the 192.168? I can't hit the 10.0.0 numbers.
Okay, so that means that you got your hosted bound services correct, but you don't have your source net correct.
Okay.
So let's take a look. So show me your trust zone.
What was the Juniper's address? Oh, it's just like, what, 0. I'll figure it out.
Okay, yep, that looks good. Okay, show me your source net.
Still in here.
No, that's going to be up higher. It's going to be under security NAT source. So you have to edit NAT source. Because you're at security right now, so you go down 2 more levels to security to NAT source. Source address. Okay, so you've got your CIDR wrong. So when we do a 0.0.0.0/24, what that means is that you have an IP address starting with 0.0.0, which is basically no IP address at all. So that's going to do nothing. So it's not matching on any traffic right now.
310, then the 3 zeros.
No, you want it to be 0.0.0.0/0, which captures all possible IP addresses.
It could be anything /0, doesn't matter.
Yeah, anything, but yeah, just anything.
Yep.
Incredibly clear.
Everything's.
That work for you, Matt?
I think you just did, so I'm gonna test it right now.
You said 2 IP addresses.
So how do I remove an IP address now?
You do delete interfaces G00. It helps a lot just to tab a whole lot. And then
See that?
unit 0 family INET, and then the address.
Looks like Kyle's listening too.
Yes.
He might be. Battery's just trying to dissect
And
chat.
address, and then your
And
10
then that one, gotcha. Thank you. Does he need to include the mask?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's connect that.
So if you jump over to your HTTP tree,
Just configuring my Cisco equipment, it's a little less wordy.
address and address 6. No, you want one IP.
Oh,
So one's the external IP of your firewall. Can you ping 192.168 that one level? What's your IP? Looks like it's on the firewall side.
security tenants.
I don't think I committed that actually. Now that I think about it.
Well, should be time here.
Oops. There we go. No SMP. Whatever.
Yeah, page covered that.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, on your. Let's go back.
Can I have a scroll back up?
You can just put it up there.
Oh, okay, that's cool. Nice. Oh yeah, area system services.
Yeah, that looks. Apart from this, this is what you want to pay. You want to allow HTTP and HTTPS to list HTTPS, but other than that, that looks right. Let's see, you want to show me your security policy. Sure.
Is there like a show IP route?
There's show routing options.
Like the backend
Or do CLI first.
Okay. Oh, that's pretty weird. What was I gonna do?
Show routing dash options. Well, that first one is wrong, but I don't think it'll do anything because it's not going to match the IP. So that looks correct, right? Or is it that's slash zero?
Yeah, it is.
That's correct. Can you ping other?
Let me see. I'm sure I can pay this. Okay. So workstations have .1.
We can do run.
Oh.
It's close.
1.1?
1.10 is the
Oh, Control Z. What's that? Ah.
I'm try running. It's a really old experience. My phone cloud telling me I'm updating something remotely when I'm editing it over VNC. I think it's getting annoying.
I'm missing something. Is there a way to like, so I know that like the Cisco stuff, the interfaces are off, so you have to like run a no shut, or is this the same way in Juniper?
You can disable them. There's like a thing called disable. That'll disable them. If you want to check their status, you can do a run show interfaces. T001 is the 192.168.
Yes. I can double check
You good to
that
go?
though. So I can
Yeah.
do the show interface. T001.
So let's go back to your HTTP SSH box. Try to ping that 20. Or no, not 30.
Not 30. Hey, look at that. So which one is that? Is that one of the?
That's where the other internal system. That's the DNS system. I think it must be something messed up with the ILAB with your configuration
I don't know. I've never really messed with that. Yeah, I love so.
It shouldn't be the problem. I wouldn't think so. I haven't done
Nothing
anything else.
These guys, it's working for you guys, right?
Maybe we should move on.
That's fine. I'll just continue following along, especially if you guys have stuff going on.
Yeah.
We're like halfway through, so we should probably keep
Sorry
going.
about
Okay. That was very weird. Let's see. Okay, so we got our zones done. So now that we're there, we're gonna do a little bit of we're gonna do a little bit of prep work for when we do our inbound firewall. So we're gonna do I'm gonna edit our security zones, and then I'm going to edit the let's edit security zone trust first. So now we're gonna create some address book entries. So the way that Juniper does inbound firewall stuff, or firewall stuff in general, is that instead of using straight up IP addresses in your rules, you use basically aliases. So you'll create a name for a system, and you'll assign it to an IP address. This makes changing your configuration later a lot easier, because you can just change like one alias, basically one item in your address book, instead of changing every rule that has to do with that system. So the way we do that is we're going to set address book address. This is in our trust zone. I'm going to go HTTP-SSH for our first system. Assign that to 192.168.1.10. And then I'm going to do the same for all the other systems on our internal subnet. Call that one RDP, and this one I'm going to call DNS. So that's all of our address book entries for the trust zone. So then we're going to add one to our address book for the untrust zone. So I'm going to create an entry for the ILAB DNS server. That way I can allow DNS only to that server and no other DNS servers on the internet, so I can sort of lock down our DNS traffic. So that's it there. And after we're done with that, we'll commit. And then we'll move on to DHCP. You know what? Let's skip DHCP. We'll just go to our one-to-one NAT instead. So we're going to go top. We're going to edit security NAT destination. And then here's sort of like how we created those address book entries. We're going to have to create pool entries for each of the IPs we're going to create a one-to-one NAT for. So we're going to do a set pool. HTTP SSH address 192.168.1.10. We'll do the same for all the other ones. And then once again, this makes it more flexible if we change our NAT later. So if we move our DNS server to a different IP address internally, we don't have to go into our one-to-one NAT configuration and change all that. We can just change this one pool address. So once we have those pool addresses in, we're going to edit our rule set DNAT. And we're going to set our from interface to GE00, G000. So that's going to be our external interface. We're going to take traffic coming into our external interface. And we're going to create a rule for HTTP SSH. We're going to match on a destination address of 10.0.0.10. So any traffic coming to 10.0.0.10, we're going to forward that onto our HTTP SSH server. And then we're going to, then if our traffic matches that rule, we're going to do a destination NAT to that internal IP, which is going to be HTTP SSH. So that's that pool we created earlier. And then basically we just have to repeat that process for each of these systems we want to create a one-to-one NAT for. And I was doing, yeah, never mind. Sometimes I'll do stuff in like two pieces that you can actually do in one, but on the rule part, you do have to do the match separate from the then part. So once we're done with that, what we basically got here was that we got our one-to-one NAT is set up. The issue that we're going to have is that other machines out on our external subnet don't actually know to send traffic to us. So if they want to send some traffic to 10.0.0.30, there's no system on that subnet ARPing for that address, so it doesn't know where to send it. So we have to proxy ARP for those addresses. So we're going to set security NAT proxy ARP interface G000, our external interface, and then we're going to just take the addresses 10.0.0.10 to 10.0.0.30. So we're going to ARP for all of the addresses in that range. Alternatively, you can just ARP for like a single address at a time. So it could do 10 and then 20 and then 30. This is a faster way to do it, but obviously if you're not allowed to actually have that many IP addresses like ARPing for your system, like you're restricted by your ISP or something like that, you don't want to be doing that. But in this case, it doesn't really matter. So once we're done with that, we can commit. And then we have our NAT completely set up. The only problem now is that our inbound firewall is blocking everything. So we have to change it from a default deny to a default permit. So we're going to edit security policies. What?
That sounds terrible.
Just to check that we have our configuration done. We're immediately going to change it to actually do filtering afterwards. So we're going to do zone, from zone. Come on. From zone, untrust, to zone, trust. So that's coming in from our external going to our internal. We show right now we have a default deny. So what we're going to do is we're going to delete that policy. Default deny, and we're going to add a new policy. Default permit. So basically now instead of denying all of our traffic, we're going to allow all of our traffic. Obviously, if you're in a competition setting, you don't want to do something like this because you're going to allow all of your traffic inbound, which is not good.
Don't drop your firewall.
Though, if you're actually in a situation where you have like a Juniper box, like you just got it and it's like in a unconfigured state, this might be something you want to do to actually test that your NAT configuration is working before you actually implement your firewall. I believe that's how we did it at Nationals, I think, with the Palo.
What do you do with the Juniper now?
Oh, we didn't have Juniper at Nationals. We had a Palo, but that's how I did it, I think.
Didn't they also Juniper? We did Juniper switch. Is that what it was?
Yeah, but that wasn't in scope, really. I don't think. I don't think. Red Team didn't mess with it.
Our switching is turned it off?
I don't think that was a thing.
Problematic.
Thank you.
We need to switch.
So we got that done. Okay, so now that we have that, we can test that our one-to-one NAT is working. So we'll jump over to Internet, not Internet 2. Once again, we'll log in as root. Password 1 bang. And we'll try to ping 10.0.0.10. And if our NAT is set up properly, we should be able to ping into our network.
Nick, I have a serious question for you.
Yeah.
Did you use my base names?
Yes, I did. They're very nice. Apart from the using the iLab repos, which confused me momentarily.
But that's the best repos.
If you use like an external DNS server, they resolve wrongly, and then it breaks.
Did they really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because I think they resolve to an external IP. It's that NAT reflection thing again. I think it is. So like you'll try to like go out of the iLab and then come back in, and then it doesn't let you back in.
There has to be a way to fix that, right?
I don't know.
Yell at Cody. Cody, how do we fix that reflection?
Oops. I'm so used to like my Linux. I just hit like the Windows key all the time. See if Cody has anything to say. No.
No, that degraded.
Yeah. Okay. So that worked for you too, at least.
I'm good.
Yeah. Okay. Let's jump over here again. So now that we have our NAT working, we can actually do our firewall stuff. I'm in the wrong system. This is not it. I need to be here. Okay. So we're going to do our inbound firewall first, and then our outbound firewall. So we're going to delete the rule that we just created because it's a bad rule and we don't want it. And then we're going to create our allow rules for all of the services that we want to allow inbound. So we're going to set policy. Would you call it allow HTTP? Match source address any, because we want when we'll allow anybody to get to our web server. Destination address is going to be the HTTP SSH server that we put in our address book way back when. So that's in our trust zone, has that address book entry for HTTP SSH. And then we're going to match the application. Oops, sorry, application. And then there's a bunch of default applications in Juniper. They all start with JunoS dash, then the name of the application, which is kind of annoying because you can't just type HTTP, you have to type JunoS dash HTTP, but that's just a thing. JunoS dash HTTP. And then we have to do a then portion of our rule. So we're going to permit. So we're allowing HTTP traffic to that HTTP SSH server, and we're permitting it.
Okay.
Is it?
Well, the word rep is weird.
Oh yeah.
My resolution type, which is because that's what's great.
I see.
What was the one you did just above show?
Set policy allow HTTP then permit.
Stuff's not broken. Okay, great. So that one's messed up. Yep. How do we delete that?
Delete what?
I need to delete a beautiful policy ping match source address any destination address any without not counting the application address IC. Could you delete a general rule period? So I basically ran that without that.
You can just wait. What?
Should I even be possible to run that? I ran. This is all one line, is it not?
Yes, it is, but those can be run separately. So basically, what you did there is what you set those first two.
Okay.
And then you can run it again and set that last one.
So what does that run? But you can run them together too, right?
Yes.
So if I ran this command and then ran them together, what does that do? Probably
That sets them all at once. But if you do like a set, you do this line and then you do a set policy ping match.
Yeah.
That application
Yeah.
it does it separately.
But I'm saying as long as I ran the same rule twice, it should not be an issue.
Should no.
Juniper won't let you stack rules that are exactly the same, but
With the same name, no.
yeah. Okay.
If they have a different name, they can have the same stuff inside them.
It just fails silently.
Yes. Well, it doesn't fail.
What rule, right? What's it do?
If like
The same
one
name.
will take precedence. Well, you mean if they have the same name, yeah, it'll tell you that that's wrong. But
No.
if like the internals are
But that's what I'm saying though. If I run the same command exactly again, that won't change anything.
no, because it's matching on the name of the policy.
Okay. Right. It's an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot to do the ping part first. So we'll do that here quick too. Now ping. It's going to be match source address any. The application is Juniper ICMP ping. We're going to do so we can allow ping through to all of our systems with that rule. And then I'm not sure off the top of my head whether Juniper does a default deny or not.
Alright, I hope it does. I really do. Okay, we're good.
I don't know if this is actually for the SRX though.
Okay, well. I mean, can we not test it? Don't we already know it's going to default to that?
Well, yeah, I guess we could test it pretty easily. Oops.
Oh.
Using this. Okay. I'm all over the place. Okay, so we could try pinging like the DNS server and see if that's. Wait, no, that won't. Yep. Go away.
I mean, everything should be one added, right?
Yes. So if it.
Technically, every thing should be through.
Yeah, for ping. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna try dig and see if that fails, because then we know it's default deny.
But yeah, that's what should be through. We should try.
Okay, just default allow.
That's terrible.
It's not great.
Why do we do this?
So it's very, very important to put a default deny way at the bottom of all your rules. So keep that in mind. I don't know if that's like a global thing you can change or not. So I'm going to set policy allow. I'm going to skip the other rules except for RDP because that one's kind of interesting. So if we try to do a set policy allow RDP from source match source address, the destination address RDP application Juno-S-RDP. And then allow and then permit it. We show way down here. We'll see that the application Juno-S-RDP does not actually exist. So one of the weird things about Juniper is that since they define all those default applications, there are a few things that they miss out on. Weirdly, some fairly popular applications like RDP, also MySQL, I think MS SQL as well, which is kind of weird. So we have to actually define those applications ourselves. So to do that, we're going to tap top to get back to our top level configuration, and then we're going to set applications, application. We'll call it Juno SRDP because that's why I put it in there. You can name it whatever you want as long as it matches what's in your policy. And then there are a bunch of different options here. We're mostly going to use destination port. Actually, no. First, we're going to do protocol. Or TP protocol. So this is a TCP protocol. And we're destination port 3389 for RDP. So now if we go back down to our security policies. Did you type it wrong?
But that's what it said.
Also set that for me.
Okay.
Juno SRDP is reserved. AKA there's something on Juno SRDP.
So they want us to no. I think they don't like using Juno S
Oh, is
dash.
this seriously?
I think so.
If I do, let me go check that. Yeah, you're right. They're stupid.
I think there is a
That's ridiculous. That's utterly ridiculous.
there's a way to show your default applications.
I can't.
Trademark.
What?
It's a trademark.
Well, I can't edit stuff in place. Here's the issue.
Show configuration.
I just said it was RP, whatever.
Yeah. We'll have to go back and change the security policy so that it matches. If you did that or not, I don't know. Configuration. No. Show configuration groups. Juno-S defaults. What the heck? That's not right. Anyway, we can skip that. Don't worry about that. So I'm going to go edit my security policies from zone untrust to zone trust. See that? So I'm going to delete that application. I'm going to set it to the correct thing. So now it's all happy. So I'm going to commit that, and we should be all good there. Oh, except for we need that default deny way at the bottom. So set policy, default deny. And then we'll commit. So that'll take care of our inbound stuff. There are a couple more things you could add if you wanted to. There is so you could add the SSH and the DNS traffic. One thing you have to worry about there is since we added that default deny policy, that's way at the bottom, any new rules will get added below it. So in order to fix that, you would do an insert, then the policy name. So like, I'll put default deny way at the top, and then you say like before some other policy. So let's say allow HTTP. If we show now, then the default deny is at the top now instead of at the bottom. I'm going to change it back now. So that's something you really have to be careful about when you're creating rules. This is something that bit me 2 years ago at regionals, is that I accidentally inserted like half of my allow rules below my default deny, and then like a bunch of traffic didn't get through the firewall, and we lost a bunch of service points that way. So it's something you have to be really careful about. That's why scripting is so useful on Juniper, is that you can standardize that sort of thing. So to do outbound filtering, we'll jump up and edit from zone trust to zone untrust. And then we can do the same sort of thing. Allow ping in HTTP and HTTPS. I'm just going to do the DNS one. Actually, yeah, I'll do the DNS one just to show it. So it's going to be ilab DNS, which is that address book entry we created earlier. And then this is JunoS DNS dash. And then there are two types of DNS. So there's TCP DNS and UDP DNS. TCP DNS is not typically used by most systems for domain name resolution. Usually it's used for like zone transfers or like, what's that secure version? DNSSEC, I think it is, where it's like they encrypt, or actually no, they do like, they like authenticate that this is actually owned by the owner of the zone, that sort of thing. So we'll just do UDP, and then we'll do, we have to permit, oops. And then you'll notice I didn't delete the default permit this time, so I'm just going to insert my policy allow DNS before policy default permit, so then I can rearrange my stuff. So that is about it for the firewall things. So I thought I would just show you real quick. You know, I should have actually downloaded this. That would have been a good idea. So here's some scripts I made a year or two ago to actually generate firewall rules for Juniper and generate one-to-one NAT mappings on Juniper 2. So this is Juniper. Yeah, if we ever make that. So basically what this does here is it deletes the address book entries for the trust and untrust zones, so that's cleared out. And then we go through and we create all the address book entries for all the stuff we want to add in our firewall rules in this part. And then in here, we do, I believe this only does inbound firewall rules, not outbound. Oh my God. So this will take our rule, we'll define like a rule set in like a file, and then this will go through and create a bunch of, it'll basically create a bunch of commands like you would type them in the config interface. So we'll do like your set default, your set policy, blah, 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 match on source address, destination address, and all that stuff. I'll write it all out, and then you just have to run in Juniper. Ooh, I closed it. That was dumb. So we can just do this manually real quick. So if I exit. Okay, so now I'm at the command line here. So it'll create a file that kind of looks like this. We'll call it rules.set. I'll do like set security policies. Policy. Let's do allow SSH match. think that should work. Yeah, so we'll create something like that. And then when we're in the config interface, we can do a load set. So it takes a bunch of set commands from a config file. And then if we do this, we can see all the files in our current working directory. And then we can do rules.set. And if I show security policies, I'll scroll way down to the bottom, and we can see that new policy in there. So you can imagine having to type out all that stuff for all like 15 services you might have in a competition. It's going to take you like 15 minutes to type all that stuff out. But if you have a script, it makes it really, really fast, and it's really, really cool. So that is all I have. If you have like free time and you want to like practice going through, like allowing through like the SSH and the other stuff, that might be something to work on. Otherwise, apart from that, that's about all I have on the Juniper stuff. I assume you guys will be here next week. Are there any topics you'd like to see? I was thinking we might cover web application firewalls next week. So that's how you set it in front of your web application so it filters out like SQL injection and command execution bugs. Otherwise, we could like jump headfirst into ESXi, talk about that if you're feeling up for it. I figured we'd wait and do more networking stuff in like a couple weeks so we can get some more Linuxy things going. But if you have any ideas or you have a preference on what next topic to do, I'd love to hear it. That's about it. Okay.
This is why we write the firewall rules the night before the competition.
What do you mean?
Well, when do we snare docs for regionals?
Well, I do that,
Yeah, exactly.
but you still have to type them.
Yeah. You just want to think about them. You know, don't think about them and break everything.
All right, goodbye, YouTube.